The wind howled across the frozen wasteland, carrying with it the echo of distant gunfire and the hollow cry of men who had long forgotten warmth. The world was locked in ice. Trees stood like statues of the dead, their branches heavy with frost. Somewhere within that endless white, a man lay still, almost invisible. His breath slow, his rifle steady, his heartbeat as silent as the falling snow. His name was Simo Häyhä, and for the soldiers of the Red Army, he would soon become a legend whispered with fear, the White Death. Simo was not born a warrior. He was born in a small village called Rautjärvi near the Russian border in 1905, a place where winters lasted longer than hope and life was carved out of forest and ice. His family were farmers. His childhood was filled with the rhythm of rural Finland, cutting wood, tending animals, hunting in the woods. He was small in stature, barely 5'3", but quick, patient, and precise. What he lacked in size, he made up for in determination. Hunting taught him everything the battlefield would later demand. He learned to track silently, to move through the forest without a sound, and to wait, sometimes for hours, for a single shot. The forest became his teacher, the snow his companion. His rifle was not a symbol of aggression, but of survival. When he joined the Finnish Civil Guard in his youth, he was already a marksman whose bullets rarely missed. Nobody could have known then that this quiet farmer would one day become the most lethal sniper in recorded history. In November 1939, the world around him changed forever. The Soviet Union invaded Finland expecting a swift victory. With tanks, bombers, and more than 1 million men, they believed they would crush the small Finnish army in weeks. But Finland did not surrender. They fought back, not for conquest, but for survival. The conflict became known as the Winter War, and its battlefield was the frozen wilderness itself. The Finnish soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, relied on courage, cunning, and the land they knew better than anyone. They moved like shadows through forests and snowdrifts, striking quickly and vanishing before the Soviets could react. And among these soldiers, one man's name began to stand out. Simo Häyhä. He wore no special insignia. His uniform was pure white, blending perfectly into the snow. He carried no telescopic sight, only the standard issue M20-30 rifle with iron sights, because the glass of a scope could reflect sunlight and reveal his position. He crawled through the snow for hours to find the perfect spot, then waited, motionless, as snow began to cover him. He even filled his mouth with snow so that his breath wouldn't give away his position. Every detail mattered. Every movement could mean death. The Soviets called him Belaya Smrt, the White Death. At first they thought it was a myth, but soon the reports became undeniable. Every morning soldiers were found frozen in the snow, each killed by a single precise bullet. No sound, no warning, no trace. In the first few weeks of battle, Häyhä's confirmed kills rose to dozens, then hundreds. By February 1940, his official tally exceeded 500. What made Simo extraordinary was not just his accuracy, but his calm. While others trembled in the cold, he lay still for hours in temperatures below 40 degrees. He didn't seek glory. To him, this was duty, defending his home from invasion. I did what I was told, he would later say. I only did my job. As his legend spread, the Soviets became desperate. They sent counter-snipers, none returned. They shelled suspected positions with artillery. But Simo was a ghost in the snow, appearing, killing, disappearing. He knew the terrain better than any map could show. He read the wind, the light, the texture of the snow. He compacted snow before firing so that muzzle blast wouldn't betray him. He thought of everything. Yet behind that precision was not a cold-blooded killer, but a man shaped by the harshness of his land. In his mind, he was protecting his people, his village, his way of life. Each shot was not vengeance, but necessity. Still, one can only imagine the toll that hundreds of kills took on his soul. By February 1940, his name had spread through both armies. Soviet troops refused to enter certain forests, whispering that the White Death was waiting. Some commanders ordered artillery strikes on single trees, just in case he was there. Fear itself became his greatest weapon. But war spares no one forever. On March 6, 1940, near the Kola River, a Soviet bullet struck him in the lower jaw, shattering half his face. His comrades thought he was dead. He was pulled from the snow, unrecognizable. Yet Simo Häyhä refused to die. He remained in a coma for several days, awakening on March 13, 1940, the day the war ended. Finland had survived. It had not won, but it had not fallen either. And the man who had killed hundreds opened his eyes to a face destroyed, but a spirit unbroken. The war left its scars. Simo underwent painful surgeries. His left cheek and jaw were permanently disfigured. The shy, quiet farmer who had once smiled rarely did so again. Not because of pride, but because his face could no longer move the same way. Yet when asked if he regretted anything, his answer was simple. I did what I was told as well as I could. He never spoke much about the war. He lived a quiet life after it, hunting, farming, raising dogs, and attending shooting events where he still outperformed men half his age. When journalists asked about his record, he shrugged. Numbers did not matter to him. Survival did. The White Death had become a legend, but to Simo Häyhä, he was just a man who defended his home. He lived to the age of 96, passing away peacefully in 2002 in a Finland that was free, independent, and thriving. When asked once how he had managed such calm and precision in war, he replied, by practice, a lot of practice. That was Simo Häyhä, humble, disciplined, silent, the most deadly sniper in human history, and yet perhaps the least boastful. Transition to reflection and legacy. After the Winter War, Finland buried its dead and counted its wounds. This snow that had once been red with blood melted into rivers, carrying away the traces of battle. But for those who survived, the war never truly ended. It lingered in their bones and in their dreams. For Simo Häyhä, the silence was familiar. He returned to it as though to an old friend. His face was rebuilt from fragments of bone. Speaking was difficult, smiling almost impossible. But he never complained. He had survived what no man was meant to survive, and that was enough. Finland celebrated him as a hero. Soldiers told stories that bordered on myth of the man who moved faster than sight, who never missed. But Simo shunned the spotlight. He had never fought for fame. He had fought for the land that raised him. While others returned to cities, Simo went back to the forest. He rebuilt his home, tended his dogs, and hunted in the same woods where he had once fought. Nature was where he found peace. In the stillness of the forest, he was no longer the White Death. He was simply Simo. Sometimes, sitting by the fire, he would stare quietly into the flames for hours. The war lived inside him, sealed away like ice beneath a frozen lake. To those who knew him, he seemed to carry a secret that could never be shared, a mixture of pride, sorrow, and acceptance. Unable to return to combat, he trained young soldiers. He taught them patience, discipline, and the art of stillness. He told them the rifle is only as good as the man who waits behind it. To him, sniping was not about killing. It was about observing and enduring. As decades rolled on, the legend of Simo Häyhä grew beyond Finland's borders. Historians studied his tactics, soldiers admired his discipline. To this day, no sniper has surpassed his confirmed record. He became a symbol of mastery born from necessity. Yet the man himself remained modest. He lived simply, feeding his dog, cleaning his rifle, hunting into his 70s. When asked how he had faced entire armies alone, he said, "Courage is just fear that has said its prayers." For Finland, he embodied national resilience. His story proved that even the smallest nation, even the quietest man, could defy giants. He had become immortal in memory long before he passed away. In 2001, at 95, Simo gave his final interview. When asked how he felt about the war and all the men he had killed, he paused for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "I did what I was told. I did it as well as I could." There was no pride, only acceptance. He died the following year in 2002. The flags of Finland were lowered. At his funeral, there were no grand speeches, only silence, the sound of the winter wind across the graves, fitting for a man who had lived his life in silence. Today, historians speak of numbers, 500 kills in less than 100 days. But numbers are not what define him. Discipline defines him. Patience defines him. Humanity defines him. He never glorified war. He never sought recognition. He simply believed in defending his home. In an age where power is measured by noise, Simo's power came from silence. He taught that strength is not found in hatred, but in endurance. That victory is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unseen beneath the snow. When the last snows of winter fall over Finland, the forests grow silent once again. Hunters tread softly through the white, their breath hanging in the cold air. Somewhere in that endless silence, the spirit of Simo Häyhä lingers, the farmer who became a ghost, the soldier who became a myth, the man who never spoke of heroism but lived it with every heartbeat. He belonged to no empire, no ideology, no propaganda. He belonged to the land, to the snow, to the timeless rhythm of survival. And as the wind sweeps across the frozen lakes, carrying the faint echo of a rifle's crack from a war long past, one might imagine a figure in white, watching from the tree line, calm, patient, invisible, still guarding his homeland, still waiting, still there. The White Death never truly left Finland. He simply melted back into the snow.